Indonesia? Is that what that says? All right, let's just jump right into this. I've got the brand new, what is it brand new? I think it's maybe a month or two old now. The Fujifilm X70, this little tiny point and shoot fixed lens camera. I wasn't actually going to review this camera because it didn't really interest me that much. I already own an X100, which I love, and this camera to me was kind of a weird newer version of the X70. I also loved the X70. It had a flip-up screen, it had a bunch of cool zone autofocus features, and this one seemed sort of decidedly more entry-level than that camera. But I thought, you know what, I'm just gonna try it out and see if I like it. So this is my first impressions. I haven't actually shot with this camera yet, but first off, it is so much smaller than I thought it was going to be. Like when you see it in pictures, it seems kind of like the same size as any other Fujifilm X series camera, but when you get up beside a regular Fujifilm X series camera like this X100T, you'll notice how much smaller it is. It's shorter, narrower, thinner, just every dimension. It's lighter. Every dimension of this camera is considerably smaller than any other Fujifilm camera I've ever shot with, including the X70. Now, this color combination, this is the champagne gold with brown leather. I think if I were getting my own, I would probably go for the all black. This one sort of stands out a little too much for me, especially for something I'd want to be using for street photography. But it does look nice. I mean, it feels, the build quality on it's quite nice. It feels well built, as all Fujifilm cameras do. This one, because everybody always asks, this one is made in Indonesia? Is that what that says? Yeah, so this camera is made in Indonesia, not made in Japan. Not many of Fujifilm's cameras are made in Japan anymore, so I don't know. I've never had a problem with any camera that wasn't made in Japan. I don't know. I don't see the big deal. Maybe some of you guys do. I don't know. I don't get it. Doesn't need to be made in Japan for me. Just a quick look at the top of the camera. You've got sort of a typical point and shoot mode dial, shutter button, power button. This is a customizable dial. It's usually for exposure compensation, but depending on what mode you're in, it can be for aperture or shutter speed. You've also got a dial around the shutter button that you can use for a lot of things. In automatic mode, it's used for the digital teleconverter. When you're in other modes, it's used for things like aperture and shutter speed. You can set it for ISO. Let me just take the lens cap off here. I'm gonna touch on this lens cap in a sec. Just get it out of the way. On the front of the camera, you've got the 18.5mm f2.8 lens. So nice wide angle, reasonably fast lens. It's a fixed lens. It barely sticks out of the camera at all. When you power the camera on, it doesn't extend. I think the camera that people would compare this to would be the Ricoh GR series. So when you power on a Ricoh GR camera, the lens extends out the front and it's got a built-in lens cap that opens up like a leaf style lens cap. I actually prefer this to that simply because it's less things that can go wrong. There's no mechanism to extend the lens or retract that lens cover, but the lens cap's a little flimsy, so I do worry about it coming off. I would maybe think about getting a different lens cap for this camera. On the back of the camera, I'm gonna turn the power off so you guys don't see just a picture of my face. I've got fingerprints all over the screen. You've got this touch screen along with Q button on the side here, a customizable button here, a joystick which is also a button. You've got your menu button, your back button, and then your drive button, your image review button, and another customizable function button on the top of the camera here. So, I mean, it's pretty basic on the back. There's not a lot going on, but with the touchscreen and with this joystick, it's actually really easy to navigate around. Very similar to the XE3 in operation, which I prefer the X-T20 to the XE3 for functionality. I like having a D-pad, but this works, especially with the touchscreen. It works really, really well. So this camera does use a different battery than the rest of the X series. It uses the NP95, which is the same battery. Is that focusing? Yeah. The same battery that was in the original X100 series, so the X100, X100S, and X100T. The X100F uses the NPW126, which is the same battery as all the interchangeable lens X series cameras. So this is an older battery. I've got a bunch of them from my X100, so I'm not too worried about battery life. This is a very interesting little camera. It's APS-C sensor, 24 megapixels. I believe it's the same sensor and processor that's in the XT100, which I really, really enjoy using. Obviously, there's nothing like, oh my God, I take that back. This little tiny camera has a microphone jack. That is brand new information to me. Now, I'm not sure how you would use that because it doesn't have a hot shoe or anything, but that's really interesting. You could maybe use a lav mic, and it's got a pretty wide lens, so you could hold it out and do some vlogging. The screen is fixed, it doesn't flip around at all, but that's really interesting. I was not expecting that to have a microphone jack. So this is just a quick first look at the Fujifilm XF10. I gotta get this light set up a little better. It's good for my face, but not so good for products. Oh, and I can confirm, one of my Twitter followers wanted to know if it manual focused, and yes, it absolutely does with this control ring on the front when you put it in manual focus mode. It has focus peaking and all that stuff, and it's got snap focus, which is also similar to the Ricoh GR series, so you can set it to 2 meters or 5 meters, and it'll focus quicker in those zones. I haven't tested it out yet. I hear it's not that fast. Hopefully it is. I'm gonna take this thing to work with me tomorrow, and which is great because it just fits in a pocket and I can kind of take it wherever. I'm really looking forward to trying this thing out, and if I like it, this might end up in my little collection, but probably the black version. I do love the champagne gold. Put it way over here. I have a champagne gold XT100, but it's the predominantly black midsection with just the champagne gold top and bottom plates, whereas this is like all champagne gold with brown leather. I think I'd go for the black. Like, just personal preference. This is a little too flashy for me, but there it is, the Fujifilm XF10. First look, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Hopefully, I might have a lot of time on my hands coming up here in the next little while to make videos, so you could see a big flood for me in the next couple of weeks. Fingers crossed. It'll be good if it happens, it'll be good if it doesn't happen. I'm kind of on the fence about the whole thing, so maybe I'll tell you why, maybe I won't. It'll be a big old mystery, but thanks for watching, and make sure to do all the things that YouTubers tell you to do at the end of videos. If you want. If you don't, that's cool too. I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.